Hey everybody, good morning. This is going to be a video review of the Fiio K3 along with my recommendations for how I use it and what headphones to use with it and why I think it's overall a killer deal at $110. It's a new product from Fiio. I think it's going to replace the E10K, which is super popular already. And that's a bigger unit with less features. I think it was around the same price, but around $100. But I think the K3 is a much nicer DAC amp combo. And there's quite a few reasons why I think that. I'm just going to give you a short overview of the K3 itself and the reasons I like it, and then tell you how I use it. So here's the K3. And on the front, you've got 2.5 TRRS balanced. So if you want to run IEMs or if you want to run anything balanced, like the 58X or monoprice M1060, M1060C, Takstar Pro 82, you can run them balanced through here. You'll get a little bit more power, a little bit more channel separation. So that's really cool. You don't see that really under about $200. I don't know if anything else is portable like this that has it. You have your standard headphone 3.5 millimeter TRS, and you have a bass boost switch. More on that later. You have a gain switch, and then your power button is turning the knob, and it goes pretty far. On the front, there's this red ring. I don't really like it that much. I don't think it adds anything to it. And it's kind of weird because there's an LED that's behind here. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I'll show you when it's turned on. And the LED changes color based on what output mode it's using. So sometimes it's yellow, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's green, red. But I don't understand why they would put a red ring here. I might actually look at taking this ring off. I think it kind of detracts from the look of it. Other than that, you have the typical high-res audio, but it's not a sticker. It's just kind of in the case, which is odd. They give you 4 rubber feet. I've put 2 on. I don't think they do a whole lot. They're actually kind of slippery. But if you're going to mount this to another device, you might want to put some rubber feet like this in between your other portable device and this. So I think they're nice to have, but they're not ultimately that grippy. They're kind of slippery. On the back, you have USB-C, which is super awesome, and I'll tell you more about that later. You have a variable line out. So that means that you can plug in JBL LSRs, any studio monitor, any type of speaker really into here and control the volume with this knob here. USB audio selection version 1.0 or 2.0. This is great to have for backwards compatibility with older devices. And yeah, I don't use it a whole lot. I usually just leave it on 2.0. If it's not compatible with one of my devices, I'll switch it over to 1.0 and it'll surely work. You have coaxial digital out and optical out. So later at the LAN party we're having in March, I'm going to be using the K3 as our primary optical source. So we're going to go in from phone or tablet or laptop into the K3, and then optical out from the K3 into a 10-way optical splitter. So that's kind of neat. So if you need optical on your phone or tablet, the K3 is a good way to add it. I think the G2 has it as well, so it's kind of comparable with the G2 in that regard. Now, as far as bass boost goes, the bass boost on the K3 is very functional. And what it does is it adds just enough bass where you can tell that it's on, but it doesn't ruin the sound of everything. and they have a graph of what type of bass boost it is. I think it's a 6 dB boost. I can't remember what the frequency it's up to, but it's just enough. And what it does is it takes neutral sounding headphones or airy sounding headphones like the SHP 9500 or the 58X, which in my opinion are lacking a little bit in the low end, especially on an amp of this size. And it just elevates it just enough where it's fun. And that's the cool thing about the K3 is you have two completely functional modes. You can have it in analytical mode with the bass boost off, or you can have it in the, fun mode with bass boost on. And I really, really like it. I find myself using it with the bass boost on with the headphones that you see here. And that's why I've put these headphones here. By the way, these are the Venture Electronics Monk Plus, and they're $5 on Massdrop. If you don't have a pair or 10, I highly recommend picking them up. They pair extremely well with the K3. And if you need a mic, there's an option to get a mic with them and everything. So they are super, super cool. I do use those with the bass boost on as well. And actually, I can use them either way. But for the most part, with the headphones you see here, I'm using the bass boost on. As far as how I use this, I've used it at my laptop, my desktop. Works great in both. Only downside is I can't plug a mic in, but most DAC amp combos you can't plug a mic in anyway, so that's not a big deal. It comes with a Type C to Type A USB cable. I mean, it's nothing special. It's kind of long. I would recommend getting another cable if you're not going to be using it at a desktop. This is a great desktop length cable, but I'll put that aside for now. If you're going to be using it at a laptop or something, get a shorter cable like this. It'll really clean up your setup a lot, and plus it's nice and braided and stuff like that. So that's what I would recommend. Now, I don't have a short USB Type C to C cable, but I do have a long one here, and I'll show you how I set it up. So this is just a Type C to Type C, and I have an LG G6 here, courtesy of Chip on the Discord. Let me unlock it. And the cool thing about the G6 and other USB Type-C Android phones is that it can power the K3 without any issue. And that's really nice because there are DAC amps and just amps that are portable, but for the most part you have to charge them. That means that you have two batteries and you have the weight of two batteries, and usually they're about the size of your phone. And you have to carry them around. And then what you do is you would take the analog jack from here and plug it into your amp, and then plug your headphones in your amp. This, you just plug in USB Type-C to Type-C, and you're using the external DAC through the Fiio. You're not using any audio source from the phone. You're not using the onboard DAC, you're not using the amp, anything like that. So it completely removes that from the equation. And the Fiio K3 will sound exactly the same as it does on your computer as it will on your Android phone. I've tried it with an iPhone Lightning to Type-C connector with my iPhone XS, and it doesn't work. And I think that's just because the Lightning connector cannot provide enough power. If I use the USB camera adapter to Type-C and then plug in external Lightning power, it works. So there is sort of a workaround for iPhone users, but I think it's just the power delivery. So hopefully the next iPhone comes with Type-C, and then the Fiio should work. All you have to do is just turn it on, and you'll see that, I don't know if you can tell, that's yellow. That comes on. Now, on this G6, it thinks that the USB is like a transfer device. But if you just dismiss the message when it comes up, it works fine. So on this G6, I'm not using it as a phone. This is my digital audio player. I've got a few apps on here. I've got Discord, whatever, but for the most part, I have Netflix, Pandora, Plex, Spotify, and YouTube. YouTube, I can download podcasts or videos directly to the SD card. Spotify, I can do the same thing with playlists. Plex, I can sync music via my Plex library and play lossless music locally. And you don't have to use your data for that. You don't have to use slow Wi-Fi. You can just play it all locally, which is super awesome. Pandora, you can do offline mode with stations. It's okay. I just have Pandora on there just so I can browse new music and stuff. And Netflix, of course, you can do downloads and stuff like that. But this is my digital audio player. It's not a phone. I mean, it is a phone, but I don't have a SIM card in it. All I have in here is a 400 gig micro SD card, and I'm just piling music on it. And it's been awesome. I really like this solution a little bit more than the digital audio players I've seen. And that's because, one, it runs Android, although I can't get stock Android on the G6, but that's not a big deal. At least not for what I'm using it for. And two, it supports wireless charging. So if I'm running low on battery, I can just put the phone on a wireless charging pad or a charging dock and continue using it with the Fiio plugged in. Overall, I've been super happy with the setup. I've been using it at work and on the go. And it's nice that the G6 has a built-in headphone out anyway. So if I want to unplug, and I can still use this in my car. Like I have an older car and it's just got an aux cable. So I can plug the aux cable right into the headphone jack, and that works. As far as the K3 goes, one of the downsides is that it doesn't support TRRS 3.5 millimeter, and that's not to say that it needs a microphone input, but headphones like the Koss Porta Pro that have a TRRS for the microphone, you can't plug it in here and have them work. You would need an adapter to get sound through without damaging the Fiio. So even regardless of the microphone, you still can't use them. That is a downside, and that kind of sucks because the K3 is a portable unit, and I would like to use some of my more portable style headphones like the Koss Porta Pro, the KPH30i, KSC75, or even the Monks that have the headphone built in. There's two versions. There's one with TRRS, and this one has TRS. But it would be nice to be able to use that, but I can't. So just something to consider there. As far as the K3 goes, we talked about Android compatibility. We talked about iPhone compatibility. It is macOS compatible. It is, of course, Windows compatible. Even Windows 7 with the USB 1.0 option, it's compatible there. There's really not a whole lot of reasons to not get the K3. It provides plenty of power. I think the 5.8X are pretty much the ultimate pairing for it. And the 5.8X are 150 ohm. I do have to run it on gain number 2. But normal listening, I'm about here on the volume knob. The volume knob goes all the way to about there. It starts to get uncomfortable around here, and that's on the 5.8X. So I normally have bass boost on, I have that, and right about here is where it starts to get uncomfortably loud. So you do have a little bit extra playroom here, but I think about 200 ohm would be your cutoff for unbalanced headphones. Maybe you could stretch that to about 250 ohm with balanced, because you're going to get a little bit more power out of balanced. I think it's about 30% more power according to Fiio's specs, but just double check that if you want. Overall, I would say it's it's one of my favorite portable units. I like the way it's constructed. I like the fact that it has USB Type-C, and I can use it with my audio player. It's a tiny little unit. Here's my hand, and it's a little thick boy, but it's nice and rounded. Seems durable enough. It's got a metal shell. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, but it's going to be my travel rig for a while, and if you have any questions about it, give me a shout. If you have any questions about my digital audio player setup, I'm happy to answer them, but for now, this is what I'm using. I'm using the K3, I'm using the LG G6. I might upgrade to like a Pixel or something where I have a little bit more control over the OS, but honestly, it's not necessary because I'm using it for a couple apps and that's it. It's, nothing's going on with the phone or cellular or anything like that, so it's not that big of a deal. So if you have any questions, give me a shout. I'm happy to answer all of them. Thanks to everyone that's subscribing on Patreon and supporting me there, and hanging out in the Discord. We're having a good time, and we'll see you guys next time.